So thank you for having me today. My name's Caroline Jackman. I head up the business skills for the Crafts Council, and we're the national agency for contemporary craft, been going for 50 years. And we pretty much started because makers were like, there is no place for contemporary craft in the UK. We want to change that. We want to build a collection. We want to build a space for makers to work with like-minded people, feel supported, build their businesses, build their capacity within the wider creative sector. And where we've got to today is a plethora of opportunities for makers. We have an online directory, which is up to about 1,000 people. This is a selected platform. We also have our Crafts, which is now actually a biannual magazine, more like a coffee table reflection on craft today, with a lot of online content that you can tap into, as well as webinars and things like that. We have lots of free newsletters. We have the Maker newsletter, the Research and Policy Brief. We also have our Craft Stories newsletters, and all create a sort of reflection of where craft is in the UK today, as well as further afield. We have Collect. This is our International Art and Design Fair, which is the 1st to the 5th of March. If you're heading to London, come and see us. But within that, we have Collect Open, which is a selected platform for individual makers. And this is really a place to celebrate the best of contemporary art objects. And that has been going for, crikey, nearly 20 years. So it's pretty unique opportunity for about 40 galleries across the world to come together to celebrate the uniqueness of materials and art objects. We now have a gallery again at Pentonville Road in North London, and we currently have an exhibition on called Cotton, Labour, Lost and Land, and it's very much looking a reflection of the history of cotton and how it was all sort of distorted through colonialism. So it's a really interesting exhibition. So if you are coming to London, do look out for that. That finishes on the 4th of March. So you can do Collect and the Cotton exhibition at the same time. We've got the website, which is just packed full of content. And if you are interested in lots of different things, whether it's reflection on the sector or needing to delve deeper into research, we've got an area that really does do that deeper dive through the research and policy. We've got the Market for Craft data tool. And a lot of people have mentioned the word lack of data. And we did a Market for Craft report in 2020 that really looked into the value of craft, where it is now and where are the opportunities. And there's a real growth in the experience economy. I don't know if you've heard that expression before, which is where people are really investing in experiences over products and wanting to sort of really have an understanding of how things are made. So there's a real sort of shift in people's perception. I know there's a lot being said about education and people's perception of craft, and we are seeing that shift. And craft has finally made it into the mainstream economy. And we've been doing these reports since 2006 to see that step change in how craft is perceived. That is a real significant point. We also have been doing a lot of business support for makers within our organisation. I'll explain a little bit more through that. But we do want to work with makers through our educational programmes, through our research and policy, through all of our contents that we provide for the Crafts magazine. So there's lots of different ways to engage with us. But at the end of the day, it is our community that designs our offers. And to really understand them, we do constantly look for qualitative and quantitative data. And I've been there for nearly 7 years, and I initiated a thing called the Maker Needs Survey, really wanting to tap into what is essential to makers today. And so this is sort of like the step beyond your choices at university or training, just thinking, actually, how can I make a business work? How can I turn my passion into a real life earning potential? And what does that look like to me? So really sort of listening into what's important and sort of speaking to colleagues in the last couple of days, just listening to what's important to them, what they truly value. That's something that I always encourage other people to do. Listen to yourself. What do you truly value? And how can you shape that to be a part of your core life? So you can support yourself and be much more resilient in how you design your life. We've talked a lot about design, but you can control that. And I have a real passion for stories written by Simon Sinek and Stephen Covey. When you think about the spheres of what you can control, what you can influence, and what you cannot control. And I really encourage people, if you are feeling sort of like a bit of a buzz coming in about things that are really stressing you out. We've talked a lot about the wider economy, the circular economy, and a lot of that is really core to our own values. But what can we control within that? What can we influence, and push aside what you can't control, because there's only so much that you can do. So it's designing something that is really important to you through your life, through your career. And that's where we need to speak to our community and hear from them and what they need. And we don't keep that to ourselves. We very much share that to our wider networks, and that's really important. We don't own that information. We want to ensure that makers are supported through whatever organisations that are relevant to them, whether it's in their region, their local location, because obviously we're a national body, so we can't do everything. So we don't even set that challenge. We work with other people to ensure that there is the best offer out there for our community. These are the sorts of things and the way that we connect up with makers through supporting them and their businesses and making their dreams become a reality. And this is relatively new. It's been going for the last sort of 7 years in this kind of like more open access way that we work with people. And whether it's in-person workshops, webinars, we hosted a series called the Spring Back Talks in 2021 to help people spring back post-COVID with their businesses. And that was a series of 10 talks, really helping people to support their marketing needs, from identifying brand values to understanding who their customers are, to build a marketing strategy, understanding what other earning potential there is, as well as a deeper dive into how you promote your work through social platforms and things like that. That was hugely successful, reaching 5,000 makers, not just in the UK, but across the world. So these are the sorts of things that we are able to initiate or work with other partners to initiate. One-to-one is really important for a lot of makers. They want to feel supported. They want to have a bespoke situation where they can be listened to, really felt heard, and shape and design their own futures. And that's really important, something that I really encourage other people to do within their own organisations, or also to work peer-to-peer. It's very important on your journey to support each other, because through that support, you only grow stronger. We have historically done training programs, most recently with the Crafting Business 6-month training programs. And that is very much to help people build business plans. And though a business plan, I'm sort of very much speaking to students in the room, might sound like a daunting thing. It isn't. It's just to put your ideas down onto paper. It could be whether you work analog or digital, but I sort of say it could be scribbled on the back of a cereal packet. It's trying to help you identify what's really important to you, trying to get some data for that, and then set some priorities and then some goals to help you get to what you want to achieve. And I do think that we talked a lot yesterday about reflective practice, and thinking it is really important to reflect back on your journey so far. Sometimes I see makers really struggle because they are very concerned about where they need to get to rather than looking back to see how far they've come. And various other things that we've done, toolkits, conferences, action learning, roundtable discussions, as well as tapping into qualitative and quantitative data. One of the most successful things that I've done most recently is roundtable discussions. And I use a training tool called the Thinking Environment. And again, I encourage people to look at this as a training tool. It is based on 10 principles to help people really focus on listening to each other and enabling everyone to have an equal voice, to put people at ease, encourage people, really accept difference, accept we come from a different place, encourage information, really encourage those incisive questions, pay attention, and open up our true feelings about the situation. And it's really powerful. I've seen a room transform before my eyes, confidence levels transform before my eyes. It's a real powerful tool. And that's within peer groups as well as within organisations, as well as supporting individuals through your own training networks. This is just an example of one of our most recent toolkits. It's our international toolkit. I know that Portugal have translated it for their own territory. I call it territory because a lot of, when we talk about exporting and trade agreements, a lot of terminology is around territories rather than countries. And also we've, Ukraine are also translating it. But it's a good toolkit to look into no matter where you are based, because it gives you the fundamentals of what it means to really understand exporting and what are the implications. When we're sort of talking about the implications that are changing with regards to regulations for your own products. And these are the sorts of things that are in the toolkit for how to question those particular regulations, keeping up to date with regulations. And if this obviously refers to the UK, but there would be associated bodies within your own countries that would obviously refer to things that are relevant to your own trade agreements. What else have we got? There we go. That's right, sorry. So I'm just going to briefly talk about the current work that I personally am focusing on within the business skills support. Mentoring is a big thing that I feel very passionate about, helping people grow in their confidence. But in addition to that, so maybe on that real granular level, I also work with outside of the creative sector, with organisations such as the Department for International Trade. And I've been building up that relationship for the last 7 years. And now they look to us for support. We have regular meetings. I have a trade contact that his remit is all around design, and he comes to me to reach our audiences to build better support opportunities for our sector, which is a particular challenge right now as the UK made a very strange decision to leave the EU. We're trying to improve those particular trade agreements. One of the things that you might not be aware of, that obviously when we were a part of the EU, we were dealing with one body. Now the UK deals with 27 different countries and 27 different trade agreements. So it's really quite challenging for British businesses. But the sorts of things that we're doing are hosting networking events. David, you just spoke about a sort of like business to business type of opportunity That's something that we've recently done last month at the Paris Embassy to bring French buyers to British businesses, to get them to talk and have confidence in those particular companies. I'm also very involved with Collect. I run the Collect Open program. This is, I mentioned earlier, is the selected stage for individuals where they are looking to make a step change in their practice. A couple of recent examples: Lucy McDonald, based up in Scotland, she was like, I just make cushions, I want to really change that. I want to do something that really speaks about my true values, my interest in weaving, my interest in my local environment, my interest in textiles. I want to say something with my work that inspires other people. So my role is to help people realize that ambition through supporting them to understand what it means to be a part of Collect Open. And then if they're selected, take them through the whole process, how they're going to fund it, what is their plan B. And funding it is not just about paying an entry fee to be a part of Collect Open, it is funding the creative ambition that they've set out to achieve. And for Lucy, it was to do 8 by 4 meter woven tapestries, 3 of them. She really set herself a task. And it was absolutely fantastic. She totally blew everyone away with what she achieved, and she set a price tag of 28,000 for each of these pieces, and she got that price tag because I helped her realize that ambition, the conversations that she was going to have, to set realistic prices, and also thinking about what is the next step in her journey. So I think with anybody working on an opportunity, it's thinking about, where is that opportunity taking you to the next step of your journey, and why? Why is that a good idea? And set some sort of pros and cons for that. And there's always a balance. And then if it's a definite green light, go for it. And look around you for experts, peer support, knowledge to really sort of ensure that you make the most of that opportunity. The other area of work I'm doing is looking into 6 traditional materials: glass, ceramics, or clay, I should be more specific, precious metal, textiles, wood, and leather. I've just run that one on Tuesday, so and what I'm doing is fact-finding of what are the challenges facing these traditional materials through conversations with people that are experts in their field. They have been in business for 5 years or more, or they are a supplier of that particular goods. And it's been so interesting to actually see it through a financial lens as well as an environmental lens, because so much has been already done, already achieved through looking through materiality, through design, on how can we reshape the narrative of our impact on the environment. But is it making financial sense? And that's something that is a really big challenge. At the end of the day, if the sums don't add up, your business is going to fail. And for a lot of people who have been in business, whether it's 40 years or 5 years, if they're making it financially work, but they're truly passionate about supporting their business by having less of an impact. And though I talk about environmental sustainability, they're talking about regenerative design, ethical practices, circular economy. It's how they're sort of turning what they used to do into something that has less of an impact. And it's really revealing. And I think what I set the challenge out to students or people thinking about a career and path, you can be the change makers of tomorrow. And we used that word yesterday. and just thinking that you can influence your future employers to make a change within their own businesses. And that's really important, to have that sort of real vision of what can happen, what can be done. But there is a lack of education through so much. But the one thing that has come out through all of these conversations so far is that we are on a journey. And if you accept that you're on a journey and you accept your place on that journey, then there is less of a risk of feeling guilty about your place on that journey, because you just think, I'm going to get there if I just keep pushing at the stage that I can keep pushing, allowing that balance of finances as well as shifting practices to work. So it's really exciting piece of work. The report that I am working on at the moment will be published hopefully by the end of March, and I will share widely, and anybody is welcome to read it, use it. It's definitely not to be hidden, hopefully. And finally, I'm working on a temporary export resource, so building on our international toolkit. There is a lot of challenges for people that are sending their work overseas, whether it's for a trade show or for a touring exhibition or a biannual. The challenges facing people for temporary exporting. So we're breaking down those barriers and presenting a new resource. This is due at the end of March as well. So again, hopefully there are some relevant things there that you can share with the wider sector. Stop working. Thanks. So a lot of what we do relies on advocacy and insight. The Crafts Council is made up a board of trustees. We also have brought in a new, what we call the Equity Council. And this is a set of individuals that are really helping us be accountable for our inclusive design and inclusion work. Sorry, tongue twister. And it's, helping us really scrutinize our own policies and making us see things in different ways, making us accountable for all of the decisions that we're making. And this has been going now for 2.5 years. And it's really sort of shifted the way we look at craft as a whole, really shifted the way we look at ourselves as an organisation, the language that we use, the language that we present externally. And through this, we also have a Young Craft Citizens group that has now grown into a Young Craft Citizens Advisory Board. And this will hopefully lead to a young craft citizen being on our board of trustees. So we can have a young voice as well as a voice from our Equity Council. Hopefully that they will merge. So it's really trying to be accountable for everything that we do, as well as the sector is accountable for everything that they do. And that's really important to the core governance of the Crafts Council, as well as working with sector organisations that build up the Craft UK network, which are 90 plus organisations. And through this, we've developed a toolkit for change to help other organisations through our own learning make these step changes, whether it's through recruitment, through language, through the particular programs that we offer, all sorts of things. So there's real significance into the way that we work as an organisation. And we're very much looking at different policies and procedures through advocacy and insight, and working much more closely with the Creative Industries Council and the Creative Industries Trade and Investment Boards, and really understanding this, our place in the sector, how we can influence that, as well as working with outside organisations. And through that, there's less scope to do delivery. So we look to business incubators. One of the most ones that's probably the best well known in the UK is called Cockpit Arts. So working with organisations like that to support our business support delivery so that we don't ignore that particular strand. There are challenges. Obviously, I've already highlighted that we no longer trade with Europe in the same way. There is a reduction in funding as a whole for the arts sector. It's hard to fund long-term programs, and there is a lack of data to influence government policy. So one of my particular ambitions is to change that lens and look at data that government will listen to and how to formalise that data. We're also going through an organisational restructure, so the organisation will look different, and that is going much more in an advocacy and insight remit. Final slide, if you please. So breaking down these barriers that we actually face, we're looking to work much more in partnership, building connections, as well as the advocacy work that we're doing, building on what we've already established outside the sector support. So one of the organisations I work very closely with is called the Made and Design Exchange, and they're looking at real-time solutions to problems, such as the amount of waste produced by coffee grounds. And whilst designers are coming up with quite a lot of solutions, that needs to be actually implemented into the bigger players, such as the construction industry. And how can we make influences within that? Or another thing is like wind turbines, the blades actually have quite a short lifespan. How can you influence the design of these blades or repurpose these in a much more meaningful way? And how can you make energy companies be much more accountable for what they're producing? So lots of different things going on there. But my provocation to everyone is how can we sustain support for craft businesses? So that is the sort of bigger challenge when we're faced with cuts in services and cuts in policymakers. So that is where we're at.